Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Jarek.
Welcome back. It's me and Jarek.
You guys get me tonight, or today, or Wednesday.
Whatever day you're listening.
Yep,
because we are going to be out of town. I forgot that phrase for a second. We're going to be out of town for the next several days, and we're going to miss recording day. Jarek, put your headphones on. Jarek just realized he wasn't wearing his headphones.
I was wondering why I was hearing you, but not hearing you.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Jarek is drinking nothing tonight.
Yep.
I'm drinking rosé leftover from last week. And
Do we have any announcements for today?
It's what it's like. This is what it's like.
Oh. Do we have any announcements for today?
No.
Okay.
We might, and I didn't write any down. Because I switched the episodes. I was going to do this episode for last week, and then last week's episode for this week.
Right.
But that was when I thought Katie and I could do them both. And then I really felt like I needed to do the Kim Wall episode with Katie.
And so which one do I get today?
You get
the
the story of Clementine Barnabet.
Oh, I've already heard about this one.
Okay, well, you have not heard all the details, so you got to stay with me.
I've already seen it.
No, you haven't.
You're right.
Okay. You have a dossier,
Mm-hmm.
which is right there.
When do I get to look at it?
In a second.
Okay.
I'm going to read a quote before we start because the whole story is, the facts are hard to come by. And so I did the best I could with what I had, but I read one article that kind of summed up like how hard it was to put together a whole story. And I wanted to start with that. So this is from countryroadsmagazine.com. The story is deeply confusing. The records are iffy, incomplete, overwrought, racist, and credulous to varying degrees. Names are absent for several victims. The whole morass of murder and myth has yet to find an obsessive, detail-oriented champion to write a definitive text. Add wild claims of, quote, voodoo, rumors of blood and thunder cult, the very real community trauma of several unsolved mass murders, and the morbid fascination a horrible, gory story inspires in the human mind. All we can do is our best.
That website was almost like, what is it? Onlyfarmers.com?
What the fuck are you talking about? Country Roads Magazine?
Oh, it's a magazine. My mistake. I like the quote, though.
Okay. All right. You can look at your first picture. It's just a picture of Clementine. It's not the best picture, but it's the only picture we have. It's from a newspaper. You can't tell.
I can tell.
Okay.
How old is Clementine?
We will get to that.
Okay.
Okay, so Clementine Barnabet was born somewhere around 1894 to parents Nina Porter, whose name I also saw in some records as Dinah Porter, which those two names are pronounced very differently. But I recognize that, like, it was probably in one record, the N looked like a D.
Right.
Anyways, I'm calling her Nina. So her parents are Nina Porter and Raymond Barnabet. And she was born in St. Martinsville, Louisiana. That's another reason I wanted this to be a Katie episode, because it's a Louisiana case.
I can be from Louisiana.
You have the strongest New York accent. Go ahead, say something with it, without it.
Why, hello there. I'm from the South.
Oh my gosh. So Raymond, her father, was a sharecropper who supplemented his income with petty theft. He was also often unfaithful to Nina and often physically abusive to his children. So Raymond is not the best character.
Right.
Clementine had at least one brother. Some records say she had 4 brothers, but the one brother we know about was named Zephyrin. And the family moved to Lafayette, Louisiana in 1909 when Clementine was about 15. Jarek's doing a little dance.
Yeah, Lafayette from Hamilton.
Uh-huh. On November 13th of 1909 in Rayne, Louisiana, a woman named Edna Opelousas.
Do I have a picture of Edna?
No. You're only going to have 2 pictures, and the second one is a map. And don't look at that yet.
Oh.
All right, so Edna, I'm going to go with Opelousas, or I'm not going to try to...
Let me see it.
No.
Okay.
You're going to see on my notes. Edna and her 3 children were murdered in their home during the night by an unknown axeman. So someone came into their home in the middle of the night with an axe and murdered the whole family.
It was Clementine.
Not quite. But this was unknowingly the first in what would be a horrific string of axe murders in and around the general area, but also it's 1909 and axe murdering was like axes were an easy way to kill someone. So like this was also kind of like the time of axe murders.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. So that was November. And then that was November of 2009. In January of 1911 in Crowley, Louisiana, this is somewhere between the 28th and the 31st, the Byers family, which was a man named Walter, his wife, and their 1 child, were killed in their home.
I'm guessing by an axe.
By an axe, correct.
I knew it.
It was thought that the killer got in through a back window because all the doors were still locked. And the axe was left lying across the head of the bed. And there was also a bucket of blood in the corner, which I don't love. And then on February 24th, so like a month later, in Lafayette, which is where Clementine and her family live, Alexander and Mimi Andrus and their 2 children were found dead in their beds. They've been
axed.
Killed to death. Axed to death. Okay.
I've been putting this together pretty well.
Yeah. The axe was found on the floor. Nothing was taken from the home. And police were like, oh, this was probably jealousy or revenge or jealous. They thought that was the motive for the murder. And they also thought there might be more than one murderer. There's obviously more than one murder.
Yeah.
That happens on February 24th. And then on February 26th, Raymond Barnabet is arrested for just the Andrus family murders.
Why?
So apparently one night, sometime after him and Nina had gotten into a fight, Nina suggested to a friend that he might be involved. It's unclear if there's actually any like evidence towards this or if Nina was just like, my husband's a piece of shit who hits me and the kids and either could do something like this or I want him to be blamed for this because I want him out of our lives.
So she set him up.
Possibly. So he's arrested, but they don't hold him very long because they don't have any evidence against him. So he gets released, and then on March 21st, in San Antonio, Texas, which is not close in terms of like
from
easy
Louisiana
travel
to Texas, right?
Yeah. The Cassaway family, which is Alfred and Elizabeth, and also their 3 children, were found dead in their homes, and they had been bludgeoned to death by an axe that was found at the scene. They also didn't have anything of value taken from their home.
It must have been getting pretty expensive for an axe murderer just keep leaving his axe someplace?
Well, with a lot of these, like remember with the I don't remember if it was with the Velisca murders or with the Hinterkaifeck murders.
Right.
Like, the axe was the family's axe. The murderer just took it, which is why I told you to stop leaving our axe outside of our back door, which is also right next to our bedroom.
Yeah, that's true.
Because someone could pick it up and just come and axe murder us. The only significant difference in the Castaway murders was that Elizabeth was white.
Oh, so these have all been
people
of color throughout this whole episode?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. All of these families, with the exception of Elizabeth Castaway, I guess, are African-American families.
And what year was this again? 1800s and early 1900s?
This is 1911 when we're at right now. They started in late 1909, and we're now in 1911.
So that was a running issue back then, I guess.
Yeah, and these were, like, at least in, like, Lafayette and Crowley, these were, like, African-American communities. So it wasn't, like...
So could these have possibly been a hate crime?
Like, racially motivated?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that anyone ever brought that up.
I just solved the murder. Murders.
But, like, there was no motive that they could find, right? Like, why are they killing the children... I mean, I guess unless you're a racist piece of shit and you just...
Well, leave no witnesses, that's why.
Well, in July, so that last murder was in March, now we're in July, Raymond Barnabet gets arrested again. And they're like, just kidding, we actually think you did kill the Andrus family. And... I think it was implied, like, and maybe these other ones, but we're going to arrest you for the Andrus family murders.
What color was Raymond?
The Barnabet family is also African American.
Okay.
There's a picture of Clementine right there.
Oh, Raymond's his sister?
No, Raymond is her dad.
Raymond is her dad.
Yeah, Raymond and Nina are her parents.
Oh my gosh.
Pay attention.
I'm trying.
I said that at the very beginning.
I completely misunderstood that. I was wondering why you gave me a picture of Clementine.
Well, Clementine's getting to it.
Okay.
Give me a second. So Raymond is held in jail until his trial in October. And during his trial, Nina, Zephyrin, who is his son, and Clementine all testified against him. Saying. So Nina and Zephyrin gave somewhat contradictory statements, although it's unclear exactly what they were. Clementine was like the star witness. So she testified in court that Raymond came home on the night of February 24th, which was the night that the Andrus family was murdered, covered in, quote,
pig's
blood and brains.
Oof.
Yeah. And she said that her father had told her that he had just killed a whole family and then told her to wash his clothes, which she said she did. Zephyrin, her brother, confirmed that part of Clementine's story about Raymond being covered in blood and telling his children that he had just killed a family. But Nina denied seeing any bloody clothes or hearing a confession. However, she did admit that Raymond had threatened to kill her a month earlier. There was a fourth witness, which was a neighbor who lived, it said, in the other part of their house. So I'm imagining maybe like a duplex or... I don't know.
Maybe they were just renting out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Or a bedroom.
But this neighbor was obviously living close with them and like they made it sound like this neighbor testified like the opposite of what Clementine said. It said he directly contradicted Clementine's statement, which I assume means, no, I saw Raymond come home the night of the 24th and he was not covered in blood and he did not say that he murdered a family.
Well, how close are these people that everybody's hearing all this?
Well, I mean, if you live in the same house, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're renting a room. Raymond had insisted that he was in Broussard that night, which I guess is another town. And it's unclear if anyone was able to verify this. But Raymond was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death.
Oof.
But Raymond's attorneys successfully appealed his conviction, partially on the grounds that he was drunk during his trial. Because apparently he had smuggled in a bottle of wine and just chugged the whole thing right before he came into court.
That sounds like something Hannah would do.
Oh, first of all, yes, if I'm in jail for a murder.
You can have some, sorry.
Toilet wine?
You can have, that was mine. You can have some toilet wine.
Are you just going to cut out that I said that first?
Damn straight. Can I look at my map?
Oh, yeah, you can look at your map now. So.
What is all this?
Oh, I forgot about that. Don't look at that part yet. Skip it. Don't look.
What about
Oh,
this?
don't look at that. Oh my gosh, I forgot everything I gave you. Hold on.
Yeah, I was wondering when you said you gave me 2 pieces, and I feel 4.
First of all. So, they get a new trial ordered, but Raymond had to stay in jail until that trial happened because he couldn't post bail.
And let me guess.
What?
The murders keep on happening.
Oh! Ding, ding, ding. If you had a drink, I'd make you take it. Well, you can't drink those bottles of whiskey. They're props now.
Aha!
Jarek does not like the rosé, Katie.
Gross.
This is a chaotic episode in such a different way than the one with Hannah was. This is like calm chaos. I don't know what's happening. For context, everyone, it's 8:45 and we're leaving as early as possible tomorrow morning.
And we still have multiple things to do.
And we have so much we have to continue doing tonight. Anyways, okay, so Raymond is in jail. November 26th rolls around, 1911 still. We're back in Lafayette. You can find that on your map.
I already looked at all
Okay,
the map.
great. So on November 26th, Norbert and Azima, I think is how we're saying her name.
Emphysema.
No, don't make fun of these people. Norbert and Azima Randall and their 3 of their children and a nephew, one of their nephews, were all found murdered in their beds. Norbert had been shot in the head, and then the rest of the family had been bludgeoned to death by an axe.
How do people not hear this as it's going
on? Well,
because if you do the shot first, people are waking up.
Yeah. So there was mosquito netting above Norbert's bed that had been cut with the axe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a child's bloody footprint found on the floor near the bed, like where the child was found, which investigators thought meant that the child had like gotten up and had been then thrown on the bed.
Oh.
So probably there was a bit of a struggle there. I realized I wrote the family out weird. I said 3 of their children and a nephew, which implies that there's a 4th child. I don't know that there is.
Okay.
So I assume that the whole Randall family has died. Shortly after the Randall family murder, police found blood about a block away on the latch of the back gate to the house of a man named Mr. Guidry.
Sounds like the murderer.
Yeah, I just like that the police are finally like doing some investigative work. So police look into this, and Clementine happens to work for Mr. Guidry as a housekeeper. And I guess the police found this suspicious because of the connection, obviously, with her father, and her father's a alleged murderer. So when her room was searched, they found an apron, a dress, and undergarments that all had blood and brain tissue on them.
In Clementine's?
In Clementine's room.
Oh, man. So
Yeah.
was it Clementine the whole time?
You have to be patient.
Nope.
There are
jumping ahead.
so many other things happening. So Clementine says, no, these are from when my dad murdered the Andrews family and he wiped his hands all over my clothes. But police are like, we're going to arrest you anyways because you have bloody clothes in here. So some records state that she denied the accusations against her. One record I found said that she named 2 accomplices. So she was like, okay, well, here are 2 other people that also did it with me. And those 2 people possibly were also arrested. So Clementine is now in jail, in prison. Or I guess in jail, awaiting trial. And on December 19th, in Rain, Louisiana, an unnamed mother and her 4 children were found murdered with an axe. I don't have any other details other than that. And then on January 19th of 1912, so we're skipping about a month, exactly a month.
Is Clementine still in jail?
Yes, Clementine is still in jail. You'll know when we get back to her because she's going to have a whole trial.
All right.
So she's in jail this whole time. January 19th, back in Crowley, Marie Warner and her 3 children were killed. One of her children either wasn't home or was home and like escaped or like wasn't injured. Some newspaper articles reported that a Wexford family was killed except for like a infant, but apparently there's no record of the Wexford family. So I think that there was like a confusion between the name Warner and Wexford and that these are the same instances that we're talking about. So, 2 more murders have taken place. Police are like, we have to arrest someone. Let's arrest Zephyrin, the brother. Because they're like,
yeah,
I don't know, your dad and sister are in jail for this. We think maybe you're like doing it for them. And Zephyryn's like,
How old was Zephyrin?
I don't know. They didn't say. I assume he's got to be a teenager.
Right.
Because Clementine is like 19 or 20. Like she's either a late teen. I guess she's
old enough to be arrested, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Also, Zephyrin has an alibi for the night of the murders, but police are like, we don't care. You're also being arrested. Same day that Zephyrin is arrested, it's either that same day or on the 21st, so a couple days later, in Lake Charles, Louisiana, Felix Broussard, his wife Matilda, and their 3 children were found murdered in their home.
And it seems to me like they're going after people with children.
Unclear if that is the target. Okay, so weird thing about this Broussard murder. So it was him, his wife, his children, killed with an axe. Okay. Written on the wall. Written on the wall.
I'm listening.
Was, quote,
I did it.
No. When he maketh inquisition for blood, he forgetteth not the cry of the humble. And I will give you $100 if you can name the Bible verse that is.
Ezekiel 1:10.
No. So it is a misquotation of Psalm 9:12.
Psalm 9:12. Got it. So what's going to happen is...
Jarek's going to try to cut that back and make it sound like he...
Yeah. Yep.
So, what was written on the wall is, when he maketh inquisition for blood, he forgetteth not the cry of the humble. The actual verse says, when he maketh inquisition for blood, he remembereth them, he forgetteth not the cry of the humble. Gotta love King James versions. But what's interesting about this is what was written on the wall was misquoted in the same way that verse is misquoted in the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, which came out in 1852. Also, on the inside of the door, which, like, please imagine with me that investigators are, like, first of all, looking at this horrific scene of 5 murdered people, 3 of whom are children. And then they're, like, oh, here's a creepy verse written on the wall. And then someone, like, closes the door and there's more behind the door.
Oh, man, what'd it say?
Are you ready for this?
He who dealt it.
No.
He who smelt it.
No.
Dealt it.
No.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only... Alright, what did it say?
Alright. It said, Human 5. Human 5.
Right.
Human 5.
Human 5.
Human
How many bodies were
5. A good point, but also creepy. Some people thought that this message implied... so some people thought that the second message was like a signature to the first, like that this was someone signing their name to it. And so they thought that it meant there were 5 murderers involved.
So it sounds like there's multiple people involved. Or they're trying to play some mind games with the police.
Yeah, it also, to me, is confusing because, like, if you write, I mean, granted, it's a quote, but, like, a fairly eloquent sounding, you know, like, he maketh the Inquisition and forgetteth not. And then it's like, did you forget how to talk when you wrote the rest of it? Just Human 5.
I mean,
like,
you just killed a bunch of people. I think you don't think clearly after that.
Yeah, that's true. In March, the El Paso Gazette published an article detailing the similarities between all of the murders. So they talked about specifically how the number 5 seemed to be coming up. So I don't know where they got this because, again, records are spotty and confusing. But according to this article, Clementine had allegedly said that she had 4 accomplices. Although she hasn't, to my knowledge, confessed at this point.
Well, she would be the 5th one.
Right, so 5. Yeah. The article also claimed that the original victim count at the Randalls was supposed to be 5, meaning 2 parents and 3 children, but that the killer didn't expect for the nephew to be there.
Right.
And just had to kill the nephew because he was there. They pointed out that the Warner family had 5 intended victims, but that a child escaped harm. So there were only 4. And then they pointed out that the Broussard family had 5 victims. They also pointed out the bucket of blood in the Byers case, that one of those very first ones. And the overall assumption and implication of the article was that these killings were, quote, sacrifices that were done, like, in a ritualistic kind of manner.
Yeah.
So, Clementine is still in jail. Like, everyone is still in jail. They have jailed 3 people, and they are not arresting anyone else at this point. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing. But on March 17th, 1912, in Beaumont, Louisiana, Hattie Dove and her 3 children were killed in their home.
Oof.
You know. This time the killer used a combination of the blunt and the sharp sides of the axe to kill them. One blow had missed the victim and hit the wall. And afterwards, the killer had wiped his hands on a cloth, and the bloody cloth and axe were left on the floor. And the axe, in this case, belonged to a neighbor who lived 2 blocks away, and I guess it had been taken and then replaced by a different axe. So infer whatever you want from that.
So I wonder if this is a cult or if this one person just doing their reconnaissance to find 5 people.
What do you mean?
Well, it constantly seems like there's 5 people getting killed. Or at least, like, children as well.
Well, this one was only 4. Hattie and her 3 children. There's no husband.
Well, maybe somebody misinterpreted something, but yeah, still the children as well is just kind of a bummer.
Yeah. I guess you can look at that article.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's the article I just referenced from the El Paso Gazette. Do you want to read the title of that, by the way?
Yeah. Voodoo's horrors break out again.
Yeah. And then there's, what's that picture on the left?
A typical group of Louisiana rice pickers from whom the victims at the sect of sacrifices are taken.
I was asking you actually to describe this picture.
Oh, why did you let me read that 3 times then?
I don't know. You were working really hard on it.
I tried. There is a baby with a python wrapped around it.
Yeah, a really,
And some people
sensationalized picture.
in the background sacrificing and bowing.
Yeah, it's... This is, I think, partly where they're I mean, I don't know who ran the El Paso Gazette, but, I assume... I don't know. But, these to me feel like fairly racist undertones of,
Yeah.
the voodoo and, here's a snake.
Well, Louisiana is known for its voodoo stuff.
Yeah, but also, voodoo is largely misunderstood and not, voodoo isn't black magic where you sacrifice babies.
You don't know that.
I do know that, actually.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, this picture, we'll post it for everyone to see, but it's a drawing of a black baby being, about to be eaten by a snake, and there's people chanting in the background, and it just seems to really villainize the African American community and kind of say, look at these evil, crazy things that they're doing. Isn't this weird? And not hey, there's a fucking axe murderer or several on the loose. We should be doing something about it.
Speaking of axe murderer on the loose, this seems to be following,
Do you want me to recap the places so you can look at them on the map?
No, I could see them, but they seem to follow 10. Route 10.
Well, that's also a modern map. I don't know what the roads were like back then.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, listen to this. The first one was Rain, and then Crowley, and then Lafayette, right? All right around the same place. And then San Antonio, and then back to Lafayette.
Right.
And then Rain and Crowley. And then Lake Charles.
Yep.
And then Beaumont. And that's as far as we are so far. So, to me, it doesn't make sense that one person would, kill all of these people in this one, area and then go all the way out to El Paso. So, I think the consensus largely is, those murders were probably not done by the same person.
It's gotta be. They gotta be living in Rain.
Well,
but the first murder was there.
You think one person's doing all of this?
Yeah. They're sticking to a pattern. They're sticking to one road.
Yeah, but why would you go all the way to San Antonio and then come back?
Business trip of some sort, and decided to try it there. I bet you, was San Antonio second?
San Antonio was fourth.
Fourth? Oof.
Yeah. Well, anyways, now we're in Glidden. Yeah, Glidden, Texas. Glidden, Texas.
Glidden. Yep.
All right, March 27th, 1912. Lyle Finucane, I think is how we're saying his name.
Let me guess. 2 children and a mother and husband.
No.
4 children.
Stop. Yes. It was Lyle and then Ellen Monroe and Ellen's 4 children. So 6 people total.
Oh.
They were all killed. Police believed that it was a robbery, although they did not explain why they thought that. There was evidence that Ellen had tried to escape during the murders, which sounds terrible. The axe was found in the home, and there was evidence that the killer had washed his or her hands in the wash pan. And police did find tracks of both a man and a woman outside of the home. Okay, so police are now doing police work again. So they get bloodhounds to follow the tracks for 2 miles. They stop at a house where a man named Jim Fields was staying with his wife. They do find a pair of bloody shoes in their home.
So it's him.
Well, so they're like, hey, Jim, what's going on? I also don't have any information on whether or not Jim and his wife were African American or Caucasian.
Right.
Seems like that might be important, but no one clarified. Jim says that he and his wife had come to Glidden the night before and tried to buy a train ticket, but there were no trains available, so they had gone home. And they were both arrested, but later found not guilty. I have no idea why. I have no other information on.
Well, we know it was them.
It
and
sounds really suspicious. Like, why are there tracks? Why do you have bloody shoes in your house? And B, why were you tracked from the scene of a murder all the way back here? And, like, do you have an alibi? All right. So, on April 1st of 1912, which I might have gotten that date wrong now that I'm looking at it. In April of 1912, Clementine confessed. Okay.
To which one?
She said that she killed 17 people. She said that she killed the Byers family, the Andrus family, the Randall family. So that's 13 total. But then she was like, I also killed some other ones. And just like, wasn't specific. She said that she had worked with 2 men and 2 women to accomplish the murders. And according to Clementine, they were involved in the Church of Sacrifice, which was an offshoot of a Christ's Sanctified Holy Church congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up Christ's Sanctified Holy Church because it is like a denomination. Truthfully, they sound pretty cool. I couldn't find any red flags. The regular one, not the cult.
Oh,
not the cult.
Oh my gosh.
Not the cult. So what I found is that they sing their hymns a cappella. They believe in spontaneous preaching and praying, which women are allowed to do, which I love. They don't have an offering plate. Like, they don't collect money from their congregation. And their clergy is not paid. So none of their pastors are paid. Like, that's part of their beliefs is, like,
interesting.
I know. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying we, like, go find one of these churches, but, like, so far, no red flags. I could be wrong. If you guys know more about Christ's Sanctified Holy Church than I do, and, like, they're actually really sketchy, let me know so I can correct myself. But the Church of Sacrifice was not that and was definitely a cult. They also allowed for women leadership, which was probably part of why it appealed to people. And they also allegedly believed that you could obtain riches and wealth through human sacrifice. Right, human sacrifice. So Clementine said that she and her friends/accomplices had been given, quote, conjure bags that would grant them protection from authorities. And I believe conjure bags are typically like protective things. They're not like instruments of evil. Like, they're things that are supposed to protect you. But they were told that these conjure bags would specifically protect them from authorities were they to do anything illegal. And Clementine said that the first murder had been a test to see if the bags actually worked.
And did they work?
For the first couple, yeah, because she didn't get caught.
17 of them.
So at Rain, which would be... Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Look at... I'm actually going to reference this myself so I can see here. Okay, so she's saying... She's talking about a murder in Rain, right? But she only confessed to the Byers, the Andruses, and the Randalls, which are Crowley and Lafayette.
Right.
There's 4 unaccounted for, so I think that she's talking about the very first one, the Opelousas.
In Rain?
In Rain, the very first one that happened in 1909.
Right.
There is your reference, by the way, for all of the murders.
And the highlighted ones are for her.
The highlighted ones are ones that she took credit for. So she says that in Rain, her and her friends essentially drew straws to see who was going to be the one to actually kill.
I mean, why would she
people.
be making this stuff up? Because the timeline does fit.
Well, we're going to get to that. So according to Clementine, she drew the short straw and she killed that entire family while the others watched. And this is a quote from her. "It was an easy matter to get rid of the 2 small children. We thought it was better to kill them than to leave them orphans." Debatable, I would say. Yeah. She said that although she had killed the Andrews family, she was one of the first ones to comfort the relatives the following day. So, like, even though she was the one that killed them, the next day she pretended to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that this thing happened to you." Like,
that's disgusting.
She had also helped prepare those bodies for burial. And she claimed that the victims had not been chosen for any specific reason, but that her and her friends or accomplices or whatever had known going in who they were going to kill. So they had people in mind, they just didn't have specific reasons for picking them. Although Clementine's confession was shocking, she did often contradict herself. So sometimes she claimed that she had accomplices, other times she would just brag about having done all of the murders herself. However, Sheriff Louis Lacoste believed that she was telling the truth. This is a quote from him.
Well, it sounded like she was going back and forth between going, "Oh, shit, I'm caught," versus, "Oh, I can pin this on somebody else."
Yeah, I mean... Well, hold on. Okay, so... As a quote from the sheriff, he said, "Clementine Barnabet is rational, and I believe it is true, except as to details given with the purpose of confusing officers as to her accomplices." So essentially what you said.
Yeah.
Which is, it sounds like her confession is true and honest. It's just, she's just trying to confuse people about whether it was just her or multiple people. So Clementine was indicted for the Randall murders. I guess... I'm assuming maybe those were the only ones they had good evidence for. Zephyrin was released, finally, because he's been in jail this whole time.
Jeez.
And for some reason, after Zephyrin was released, Clementine confessed to the Broussard murders.
And which ones were those again?
So, look. Yep,
I see.
Okay.
Wait.
Do you see the problem there?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
She was still in jail. Yeah,
she was in jail when that murder happened. And so now she's confessing to murders that, like, there's no way she could have committed.
Zephyrin was out of jail then.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. Never mind.
So, this is why it's, like, a little iffy about whether or not she's telling the truth or whether there's something else going on. On April 6th, Reverend Thompson, I also saw him possibly as another person, a reverend of some kind, who was in the Church of Sacrifice, was questioned about all of this. He had a passage in his Bible underlined that said this, quote, "And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the tree. Therefore every tree which bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire." He also admitted that he preached that when members of the church became, quote, "sanctified," they could no longer sin against God, and that the laws of the justice system did not apply to them.
Ooh.
So...
That sounds very culty right there.
Yeah, kind of dangerous. All right, on August 16th of 1912 in San Antonio,
Texas.
Yep. There was another attempted axe murder near where the Castaway murders had taken place. And so this is another, I think, good evidence of why this is probably multiple people. So in this case, a male intruder broke in through a kitchen window at 4 a.m. And this family, whose last name I think is Dashel, they had an actual break-in a few months earlier. So they were like prepared. They were like us when our door almost got kicked in, or when our car got broken into. We were like, now we have a security system with cameras. So they were like sort of prepared, except for this guy still broke in and attacked the wife, Lois, with an axe. Ooh. She did put her arm up, so her arm got, like, she put her arm over her head, so her arm got it. Ooh. And her head didn't get it. I assume she was okay. It's 1912. Maybe she lost the arm. I don't know. James, her husband, heard her screaming and came out with his gun. Mm-hmm. Shot a bunch of times. None of them hit.
Pew, pew, pew. It's the sounds of misses.
And the intruder fled. So I'm like, okay, axe murders are still at least trying to take place.
Yeah.
Okay. In October of 1912, Clementine took the stand at her own trial.
I'm sure this went well.
Yeah, I'm sure her lawyers loved her. So Clementine told the judge and the jury that she and her, quote, friends had started with a family in Rain. So I'm thinking possibly the Opelousas family, which I now feel like I'm saying that name differently. So she said that they started with them to test out their conjure bags. She named several co-conspirators throughout her trial. All of the people that she named had alibis. So, like, they were all arrested, looked into, and released.
How do they all have alibis?
None of them were murderers. I don't know. She allegedly cited, quote, which I'm like, Clementine, this is not helping anyone. She allegedly cited, quote, voodoo rites and sexual perversion as her motives in the killings. I don't think that any of the
victims were sexualized.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was sexually assaulted. Her attorney tried to argue a, quote, religious insanity plea. They explained the bloody clothes in her room as having come from sloppy police work.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's 1912. Like, and the attorneys were like, they threw all of the evidence in one bag together. Like, could have come from anywhere. There was one theory, I don't think anyone argued this, but someone just pointed out one theory for the bloody clothes could have been like menstruation blood.
Gross.
Well, they pointed out that, like, growing up in poverty, Clementine, like, could have very easily been malnourished, meaning, like, likely that she didn't get her period until, like, she was older, like an older teen.
Right.
And, like, possibly she didn't know what was going on, or, like, possibly, sorry, Jarek, but, like, sometimes you just get, like, a really heavy, gross period and, like, you don't have tampons. I mean, I'm not saying this has happened to me.
So where does it go?
Yeah, I'm saying, like, if you don't have tampons or, like, a Diva cup or, you know, a disc, or a pad, or
a plunger.
Women have been having, you know, horrible heavy periods for forever, and that could have happened to Clementine, and she just didn't really know what was going on, and she hid her bloody clothes somewhere. Point being, there could have been other explanations for the bloody clothes. Clementine insisted, against her attorney's advice, on having her confessions entered into the trial record. And this is another quote from her from the trial that the press, like, took and ran with. She said, quote, "I am the woman of the sacrifice sect. I killed them all, men, women, and babies, and I hugged the dead bodies to my heart." Allegedly, she believed that if she were to be executed, an angel in a chariot of fire would come down from heaven and save her.
Highly doubtful.
I will give you $5 if you can tell me who that happened to in the Bible.
Micah.
Ooh, good name. Put that on the list. No. Elijah.
It's Micah. Wait. Elijah.
Oh my gosh. Perils of working with your husband. I only say that because it's it's imagery pulled directly from the Old Testament, which is the prophet Elijah didn't die. He was taken into heaven by a chariot of fire.
Right.
And And now Clementine is saying that she believes this is going to happen to her. On October 24th of 1912, Clementine was convicted of the Randall killings and sentenced to life in prison at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. 9 years later, on September 4th of 1921, the Times-Picayune, which I don't think I'm saying that right, a New Orleans paper, ran a story that mentioned Clementine, and this is a quote from that. Examination by medical experts disclosed the fact that she was a pervert. I don't love the wording in this. She was given a life term in the penitentiary and then brought to Baton Rouge. And when brought to Baton Rouge, she was subjected to another examination. Prison surgeons performed an operation that restored her to normal condition. She has been at the women's camp in Angola several years and has caused absolutely no trouble.
Sounds like a lobotomy.
It would sound like a lobotomy if lobotomies were a thing at the time. They were not. Lobotomies didn't become a thing until the 30s. And there's not...
Maybe it was a trial run.
Yeah, it does sound like a sketchy procedure where they're like, and we fixed your personality disorder.
Hit that frontal lobe.
Yeah. So we don't know what kind of procedure was done. But on April 28th of 1923, so just 2 years later, Clementine was released from prison. And they were like, you're cured. Goodbye. She almost certainly changed her name because there's no record of her after that. But the general consensus about Clementine's involvement in all of this is that she's unlikely to have been responsible for most, if any, of the murders. She was almost certainly suffering from some kind of mental illness, and whether that was brought on by her upbringing, poverty, or the cult that she was in, or like a combination of all of those things.
I was going to say all of them.
Yeah, like she had an abusive father, she was probably living in poverty, and she was in a cult. Like, and there could have been
things.
And there could have been mental health issues in the family. So like, I mean, take someone who already is, like bipolar or has anxiety or, is depressive or whatever, and then put them in that environment, and it's terrible. She was also, I think this is worth mentioning, a young black woman who was facing a white justice system.
Ouch.
Yeah, so like, even though these were all murders...
but she did confess to all of them. You think she was coerced into it?
Well, no, but like... I mean, even though because... Okay, how am I saying this? Even though all of the murders were of African-American families and in the African-American community, the justice system, like the legal system, was still very much white.
Right.
And I think that whether or not she had confessed or not... I mean, another thing to point out, I have no idea what happened to her dad. They said that he was scheduled for another trial, but in the first trial where there was, like, no physical evidence against him, they found him guilty and sentenced him to death. And so it's like, she might have thought that that was her only power move that she could take, was to own it and be like, if you think I did this I'm gonna, like, own it and tell you that I did all of them and make you scared of me, essentially. Yeah. So, I don't know. So... One of the other reasons that people think that, like, she probably wasn't responsible for these is that, like, had authorities really thought that she was the killer, they probably would not have, like, just let her go after 11 years and been like, okay, you're safe now. Like, go off and don't do that again. And also, axe murders had largely stopped by the time she had gotten out.
No more communications to be able to do it.
Well, like, they didn't resume when she was free, so it's not like all of the axe murders stopped when she was locked up and then started again when she got out.
Right.
And, like, actually the opposite happened, which is, like, she got put away and they kept happening, and then they stopped while she was in prison and then afterwards. So one thing that I think is super interesting is the prevailing theory
And what's
of
that?
all of this. Okay. So, it's kind of convoluted, but stick with me. A theory is that it is a mix of a traveling serial killer, mass hysteria, copycat killings, and then having a convenient scapegoat of a, quote, voodoo cult that they could blame everything on. So, Bill James and Rachel McCarthy James wrote a book called The Man from the Train, which suggested that one man traveled throughout the United States by train between 1897 and 1912, and that he was possibly responsible for killing over 100 people with axes, essentially.
Was he caught?
No.
Oh.
But they think that he was the Villisca Axe murderer. Remember our Villisca Axe house,
Well,
whatever?
if we look at the map, you can see that he follows a route. We just got to backtrack the railroad systems then.
Well, I also don't think that... I don't think he was all of them, but... So he was implicated in the Villisca murders. There's a ton of other ones I should have printed out from that article, but they even think that he might have been involved in the Hinterkaifeck murders in Germany, because the man that they think was responsible was a man named Paul Mueller, who was a German immigrant. The MO of this particular man that they could track, like, throughout all of these different axe murders, was to attack with the blunt side of the axe. No valuables would be taken from the home. The bodies would be piled together, usually with cloths covering their faces. And he would use an axe that was already at the home. And the victim's home would be within walking distance of a train station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this guy, Paul Mueller, he was an immigrant from Germany who worked as a farmhand for a family in West Brookfield, Massachusetts in 1897. And that family was bludgeoned to death by an axe, and Mueller was never found. So he, like, looked suspicious for that one. And then they were like...
And then just went on a road trip.
Possibly. So they think that this killer was likely responsible for the Byers and the Castaway murders, because those two match his MO. The other ones, I'm going to read another quote from Country Road magazine. The sudden appearance of the terrible possibility of solving a grievance through violence with a tool everyone had may have inspired copycats, with people running around yelling about a voodoo cult. A commonplace motive like a bad debt or a stolen love could fly comfortably under the radar. So essentially saying that, like, when this axe murder hysteria or mayhem was going on,
everybody was picking up on it.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, well, people are already kind of getting axed to death, and no one knows who's doing it, and there's this weird cult that everyone kind of thinks is responsible for it.
And there's the blame for everybody.
And that guy down the street also owes me $100, and I'm really mad at him, and...
He's the murderer.
I'm gonna go kill him and just let everyone assume it was the cult.
Yeah, but there were always like 4 or 5, 6 people in the house.
Yeah, and it was always the children, which really...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Screams cult.
I don't think it was the cult. I don't think it was. I don't know. I don't think it was. I think that cult was definitely real and, like, problematic, but I don't know. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of them could have been, but, like, I don't know. It's such a confusing story because Clementine gave this, like, really shocking confession, and she, like, pointed at like this creepy cult, and it's like, it kind of makes sense, but a lot of it can't have made sense. So, like, I don't know. I don't know what to think of her.
I'll tell you, she did it.
No, that's not
because she was in the cult.
That's not the... There were, like, 4 murders that took place while she was in prison. What are you talking about? You mean, here, reference your sheet. That's why I made it.
I know she did it. Some of them, at least. And the cult did the rest, because she was in the cult.
I just explained why it couldn't have been just the cult, and why part of them were probably that one guy. And then I read that whole quote about, other reasons to do it.
He joined the cult too.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're like, we're so relatable.
Anyways, the official position of the Tales We Tell podcast is not that Clementine did it.
Oh.
I say we stand with Clementine. Because I think she was very much a victim of the system and of circumstance.
And if you want to see what Clementine looks like.
And if you want to see my map that I'm going to have to actually take a picture of with my phone and upload that way. Or if you want to see the article, or maybe if I can figure out how to post that chart that I did, you can see those on our Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast, or on our Facebook
at the Tales We Tell podcast,
or
our website,
which
thetaleswetellpodcast.com.
Good job. What else does Katie usually say?
And our Redbubble store. You can see those on there too.
No, you cannot see
You
those
can
on the Redbubble store. You can get yourself some sweet, sweet swag at the Redbubble store. You can go to redbubble.com and search the Tales We Tell podcast, I think. Yep. And we've got a couple different logos. You can put them on shirts. You can put them on hats. You can put them on mugs. You can't.
Sucks.
You know what you can't put them on that I've been trying to get them on?
What?
Baby onesies.
Ooh. They need to change that.
I know. Ugh. Anyways, you can get it on mostly everything except for a onesie, which sucks. But you can go do that. And then if you want to support us, but you don't need the stuff, you can go to
patreon.com.
Yep. And search the Tales We Tell podcast. There you can get bonus content, love notes, stickers, early access, ad-free listening, our undying love, all of that good stuff. I think we just do, I think it's like $5 a month. It's pretty cheap. You can do more if you want to. We do have a special rate for billionaires, which is $1 million a month. So send your billionaire friends to us.
Remind me to put that one back up there.
I was going to say, maybe we should figure out which episodes we talk about how, well, Katie and I talk about how much we hate billionaires. We should probably edit those out for them. But anyways, is that everything? Did we cover everything?
That's everything.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Jarek, for filling in.
You're welcome. You
can write the next episode because I'm tired. And
we'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Bye. You gotta do it the right way.
Ready? Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
What's wrong?